Welcome to the podcast, Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married? I'm your host, Kevin Dennis.
And I'm August Joker, co-host and brand manager at Fantasy Sound Event Services.
In addition to leading the charge at Wedding IQ, I also run Fantasy Sound Event Services, a lighting and entertainment company based in Livermore, California, that I founded over 35 years ago.
Each week on this podcast, we'll explore a new corner of wedding planning so you can prepare for your I-dos without the stress.
From budgeting to booking vendors to the day of drama.
Let's talk smart wedding planning.
All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married? And we have Nora Culley with us. I think I did it right. If not, she'll yell at me later. But she's with Engage with Nora. And Nora, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how we got you here today?
Thanks so much, Kevin. I'm so excited to be here. Like you said, I am the owner and creative director of Engage with Nora. We are a full-service wedding and design planning company located in Cleveland, Ohio, but serving all of the Midwest and beyond. I have a bit of a unique background in the event industry. I actually never had the intention to jump into wedding planning. Was actually a professional performer for most of my life, and then fell in love with events while living and working in New York City. So I take a lot of inspiration from experiential design and unique experiences. And our clients are always looking for something unique and out of the box and something people have never seen before. And that's kind of what we're known for in the industry.
Oh, okay. So New York, what we got to, you were working in the theater there? Or?
Yes. Yeah. I was fully a singer and dancer in New York. I had an agent. I was working.
Wow.
And in between jobs, I was looking for something to pay the bills and ended up getting an interview at Kleinfeld Bridal in Chelsea. Oh. And so I was there for just over 2 years, working in their hotel blocking division and in the store itself. And being surrounded by beautiful dresses, going to Bridal Fashion Week, working with hotels and brands all over the country, I just kind of saw that there was a pretty clear correlation between how I approached my career as a performer with the event industry. It's all about producing something that you can only do once. It's a live event, and it better be done right. There's high stakes all the way around. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, so
I love it.
Yeah.
I actually, our company used to do the film festival here local, and there would be a bunch of movie people here, and I would be like, "Hey, we got to go. We got one time to do this," and they would be like, always like. I'm like, it's not like the movies where you guys get to do it 40, 50 times to get it right. I go, we got one shot. Let's go.
This is SNL basically.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah. Everybody says, SNL is the hardest job on the planet. I think wedding planning is the hardest job on the planet because, SNL, if you mess up, then, everybody laughs and shakes it off. But if you mess up on somebody's wedding day, then, you've got the wrath of 2 sets of parents coming at you and
bridesmaids, groomsmen, guests.
We better call up Lorne Michaels and let him know because
absolutely.
All right, Nora. Well, I love the background. I love New York. I was the WIPA president for a long time, and that was my favorite chapter to actually go. And when I was the national president, to go visit New York, because one, it was the food, and two, the energy in the city is like no other. You will never, I don't care what city it is, that is the best city ever. So and that's a Californian saying that anyway.
That's a huge compliment.
Yeah. All right. So we have you here today, Nora, to talk about areas where you should never skimp when planning for your wedding, which I was very intrigued by this topic. And I'm very intrigued. I want to know what we can't skip on. So when it comes to wedding planning, couples often are told to prioritize what matters the most. But what are the key areas you believe couples should never cut corners on?
Yeah. So my team's going to laugh when they hear this because I sound like a broken record. But I tell all of my clients at the very beginning of the process that your guests truly only care about 3 things. They care about the food, they care about the entertainment, and they care about being comfortable. And that last portion there about being comfortable, that's everything from, what they're sitting on, to what the temperature in the room is like, whether they can see what's in front of them. Are they being transported to the different venues properly? Basically, are we keeping guests at the forefront of our mind when we're making decisions regarding the logistics surrounding the day?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because our company does lighting and DJs and whatnot, but I'm always telling my couples it's about guest, basically keeping them entertained, keeping them comfortable, and guest experience when it comes to weddings.
Yeah.
That's what guests remember the most, is did they have a good time?
Well, and I feel
Absolutely.
like it's almost an expectation now, right? Like if I get invited to a wedding and like I'm being told, "Oh, you have to walk a mile to the venue, or you have to carry your own chair," or something like that, like that's just not what you're expecting when you're walking into a wedding day.
Yeah, your wedding is about creating a once in a lifetime experience for your guests as much as it is about your experience for the day. And I love design driven events. Design is one of my favorite parts of the entire process. It's where I get to stretch my creativity and think outside of the box. But I tell my clients all the time, guests are never going to remember the centerpiece on their table, ever. I'm professional, and when I attend weddings, I don't even remember what was on the table. But what I do remember is how the room felt, or how I felt taken care of at that event, or the energy in the room. Those are things that have lasting effects. And you can spend $70,000 on floral. It's going to look spectacular. But if that floral is just sitting there for the purpose of being pretty, then it's not really increasing the experience for your guests.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, and kind of talking on numbers, so we know that like budgeting can tend to be a little bit overwhelming for couples. So like maybe you are, prioritizing flowers and wanting to spend $70,000 on it. But how can couples really figure out like where it's worth to be spending more and where they can safely save their money?
Absolutely. So, obviously decor and design is a large portion of every client's budget, as are things like food and beverage and the venue and the entertainment. So when I start the process with my clients, I try to have them narrow down their priorities to the top 3 aspects of the wedding that are most important to them. So that could be anything from, the things I just listed: food and beverage, entertainment, design, decor. It could also be things like location. It could also be things like personal styling or documentation, so photo, video, and content creation. And by having them narrow it down to those top 3, I can really help guide where we're going to sink the funds of the day. If you don't care about the location of your wedding, then the doors open up to so many possibilities, right? Because I think we all know the closer you are to a metropolitan area, the more expensive the wedding's going to be. And then on the opposite side of that, if you're in a complete remote location, there could also be a lot of hidden costs surrounding that too. If we have to transport people an hour, or if vendors have to stay overnight because there's not accommodations, close enough. So by prioritizing those top 3, I can kind of go through their budget and say, okay, we're going to splurge in this area and we're going to save in this other area that's not as important to you. But I think that there is this notion that you have to have certain things at your wedding. And I disagree with that entirely. Your wedding is your party. If you don't want to have a guest book, you don't need to have a guest book. If you don't want to have favors, you don't need to have favors. If you don't want a monogram on your dance floor, you don't have to have a monogram on your dance floor. The wedding world that we currently live in is completely customizable. And what I always encourage couples to do is to think about what actually matters to them about the day. and then everything else scale back.
I love that. Yeah, because then that actually they get what they want, and and sometimes you can go into a wedding and you can tell what's important to them because you can tell where they spent the money. So, and then
Yeah.
all right, so I'm curious because this is I think a little bit of a controversial topic is about photo and videography is often called investments, and I always think it's wrong when I do a wedding and there's not a videographer because there's always a photographer but not a videographer. And I always, pictures are wonderful, but they don't talk to you and they don't talk back. So I think that's what is so important about a video. But can you talk about why capturing the day is just so important in the long run, like looking back 10 years from now?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think people tend to prioritize photo because they view it as a necessity. And then everyone views videography as kind of like this bonus. Like we want to have it, but we don't need it. But you will never regret having your wedding captured on film. Like that is never going to be something you're like, man, I wish we didn't do that. Are you going to watch that wedding film every day of your life for the rest of your life? Absolutely not. Will you even watch it every anniversary? Probably not. But what I will say is from my own personal wedding, we were not completely set on videography, but we worked with a team that was combined photo and video. And so with the level of service that we were looking for with photo, we included video with that as well. And I'll tell you, I treasure the video more than I do the photos. Like there are probably 5 great photos from my wedding that I'm like, yep, print those off, hang those on my mom's wall, put that on Instagram or whatever you want to do. But we have our entire ceremony fully edited in its entirety. We did personal vows, so all of that is captured. All those little moments, my parents' reaction, my sister who officiated, her reaction as I walked down the aisle, all of that's there. And then we also have all of our toasts and speeches captured, which I think people don't necessarily think about when they are at the beginning of the process because they're like, it's just video. Like, I'll remember what people said about me. No, you won't. No, you won't. And also, it's just this like true, real capture of the day. Whereas your photos are always going to be a little posed, a little contrived. I mean, that's the entire job, right? Is to show you at your best versus videography shows the real experience of the day. And I think that people just don't see it as somewhere that they want to invest thousands of dollars, but you're spending tens, if not hundreds, if not millions of dollars on hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on your wedding. To not have that memorialized in some way is a miss in my book.
And I'm often this next generation that's getting married is all about video. They when it comes to social media. So part of me, I'm wondering if we're there because we went through the phase where we got like a lot of people like you're saying did not do the video, and and I think they look back and regret it. I have the video. My kids look back on it and are upset that they weren't there. It's just like but it just and it's a great thing to have, like you said, if you ever want to look back on it or whatever. But I'm wondering if we're going to get to a point where people might prioritize video over photography, as we 3-5 years from now, where it's like video is going to take over for photography.
I think so, especially with the rise of bringing in content creators. Like that's been such a huge trend this year, and I definitely don't think that's something that's going to go away.
No, and we're seeing a lot of our clients who have full photo and video teams still hiring content creators just so that they have a little bit more raw footage or behind the scenes content from the day versus your videographer is more of that edited and clean production. But yeah, I think video is going to be something that is greatly prioritized, especially as Gen Z starts to hit the market, which we're already seeing. And it's the one thing we can thank TikTok and Instagram for is that video content is becoming king. The one thing. But there's also other ways that you can do video content without necessarily having the same investment level as your photographer. I have clients who are renting vintage camcorders, and they are them around throughout the evening so that they can see people on the dance floor or capture the speeches. And it's kind of this like POV of your guests rather than a professional. So if you don't have the funds to sink into hiring a video team, there are other options there that you can look into. They're going to require a little bit more work on behalf of you or on behalf of your wedding party or your guests. But I think just having that as a base is better than nothing.
Yeah. Is this, so I'm curious, with like photo video, is that something that you tend to recommend clients don't skimp on? Because I know you mentioned like it was food, entertainment, and comfortability, right? Do you think that photo video falls under one of those categories?
It doesn't necessarily fall under one of those categories, but photo and video is a gift for the couple. Like it doesn't, photo and video being there doesn't.
It's separate than the guest experience. Yeah.
Correct. I don't even consider it necessarily a part of the event production, because as much as, obviously we build a timeline around photos and videos and getting all your portraits done, things like that, your guests never experience that aspect of the wedding. So photo and video is a gift to yourself. You are hiring those people to preserve your memories for you and you only. It's very rare that people upload their entire wedding album onto Facebook and tag all their guests in those photos. That's more so like your photo booth. Like your photo booth is for your guests, but the photographer and videographer for the day is for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but that's cool. And then we do kind of bring this up a lot in the podcast specifically because we feel, and I'm sure you feel the same, that it is very important. But just to kind of get your take and your 2 cents when it comes to planners and coordinators, what value do you think they bring that couples might not realize until the big day? We talk about it so much, but we always just want to push that having a planner of any kind is so imperative to the success of the day.
Yeah, it is necessary. I mean, if you're doing any kind of production on your wedding, you need to have a planning team hired. And that could be as low a package as coordination or as high as full-scale weekend planning. But you need someone who is in charge on the wedding day. Because when there isn't a coordinator or a planner present, your vendors are all working as individual contractors. Versus when you have a coordinator or planner, they are the ones that are directing the day. So they're communicating with all those vendors. They're the one that makes your cohesive timeline, because, a photographer is going to create their timeline for the day. And that's going to prioritize photos. And the DJ is going to make their timeline for the evening. And that's going to prioritize music and entertainment. And then your caterer is going to create their own internal timeline for food service, and that's going to prioritize catering. So when you have somebody in that planning seat, they're gathering all this information to put together a day that is going to be the most beneficial for all the vendors involved, as well as for the client's experience that day. I'm sure everybody has attended a wedding where it seems like the couple is not enjoying themselves. You see it all the time. They look stressed, they look hurried, it's a chaotic day. And that is because no one is guiding them through the day. They're having to manage all the different aspects. When we work on a wedding day, I probably get asked about 200 questions on a wedding day from vendors alone. And my job is to advocate for the client, because throughout our planning process, I have learned their preferences and their priorities. I've learned what's important to them about the day. And so then I don't have to bother them with little details. I can advocate for them and make a decision that's going to be in the best interest of all parties involved. I'm their representative on the ground. I always think of planners and coordinators as the director or the stage manager of the day, which harkens back to my
I was going to say, Full circle moment.
Yeah, exactly. Like nothing happens on a wedding day without my approval. You know, if the DJ is going to make an announcement, they ask me if they can make an announcement first, you know? Because what if we're doing something like, you know, what if we're having them record their vows in a separate, you know, at the end of the room,
Mhm.
and that announcement is going to ruin the film,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So everything happens with our team's approval, and when that happens, there's no missteps. Everything is taken care of, and it also creates more of a team atmosphere between the vendors because no one has to, you know, big dog each other. No one's saying, well, I'm the one doing this, so I get to make that decision. Everything funnels through us.
I love it.
And then in terms of like the, you know, when you're working with a full service planner, you know, you're collaborating with them throughout the entire process. And what I always tell people is that my job is to edit and curate. So I'm going to stop you from investing somewhere that doesn't need investing. I'm going to stop you from, you know, pulling in a design element that doesn't fit with the rest of the scope. I'm going to stop you from hiring that vendor that seems a little too cheap for what you're asking for, right? So we stop a lot of problems before they even arise because we're a part of the process from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. All right, so curious because we're talking about like, you know, cutting corners and different things throughout it. So how does like cutting corners when they're going through the planning process impact the guest experience at a wedding?
Oh, you can see it, and everyone
Yeah.
can feel it. You know, I always encourage my couples to shop based on service and experience and not on price.
Oh,
Price is obviously a consideration
of
when we're in
course.
this process because even people who are spending $500,000 on their wedding still have a budget. It
Yep.
means we can't just do everything, right? So when you are vetting your vendors, it's very important to find someone who aligns with your vision of the day first. And then once you've found a small group of people that have that same vision as you, then you can start to look at price and investment and see if it's the right fit. But oftentimes where I see people skimping is on the service aspect. I have had clients try and remove service staff from catering quotes, stating that they don't feel they need 12 servers for 200 people.
Jeez.
It's like, well, I'm going to tell you, you're going to need that many servers, if not more. That's the minimum that we need. Or same thing with bar staff. You know, the standard ratio is 1 per 50 guests if you want to make sure that you don't have lines backed up in cocktail hour. And people will often say, you know, I feel like we could get away with 1. We're a beer and wine crowd. It's like, not on wedding day. They aren't. Not on wedding day. They want cocktails, and you have 2 signature cocktails that are going to take time to batch and create
Yeah.
for each one of those guests. And then same thing with like decor, rentals, and floral. People often think that DIYing is going to be cheaper in the long run. And maybe it is, but when you consider the amount of time that you have to spend working on those items and creating those items, it's actually not cheaper.
And time is valuable. It's worth so much.
It's worth so much. And especially when there are parts of the wedding planning process that you have to do, no one else can do on your behalf. You know, I can't create your seating chart for you because you're going to be mad at me because grandma's sitting next to an aunt that she hates. And I don't know that dynamic, right? So there are tons of things that you as a couple have to do. So the things that you don't have to do, don't do them. You know, we've had clients, you know, when we were first starting out, that built all this decor and shoved it in a U-Haul. And then their entire wedding weekend, they had to find places to park that U-Haul. They had to hire, or not hire in, but ask for family members or groomsmen to set up those items. And it just becomes a hassle all around. Now, at the end of the day, is having that backdrop for your ceremony worth what you're spending to get it there, right? And then same thing with floral. Like I had a bride a couple years ago who went to Trader Joe's the week of her wedding, she got there as soon as they opened, said she could guarantee that she got all the flowers she want. And there were 5 other brides in line with her outside the store.
Oh my
So
gosh.
so they had to basically fight to get all the florals that they wanted. And she spent the entire day prior to her wedding arranging florals. Instead of getting her nails done or spending the day with family and friends, prepping for the rehearsal, she spent that entire day doing florals.
I mean, at that point, just do candles and don't even do floral, you know, like
you don't even have to do candles. You can get little lamps on Amazon if you want to, and have beautiful cabaret lamps. You can have figurines, you can have sculpture. I mean, there are so many different options in terms of centerpieces that aren't necessarily floral, but you also have to think about what the floral's going in. You know, are you buying all those vases and vessels and all the oasis and chicken wire that has to go into that? Where are you storing your floral so that it stays in its peak condition for the wedding day? Because florists have multiple huge coolers that they're storing all your floral in preparation for the wedding. So I just encourage clients and couples in general, when they are planning, to really think about what is worth their time and what is better done by a professional.
I love it.
Well, and do you think there are any like hidden areas where couples think that they're saving money, but then it ends up costing them more later on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes back to the DIY aspect. What, like if I'm, we have a whole side of our business that does stationery and signage. So
cool.
It's just easier. We have all the information. We know what the design's supposed to look like. We're in communication with the client all the time. So signage and stationery is an easy thing for us to do, especially since it's in the last month of planning that's really happening. But we charge roughly what you would be spending if you were printing the signage yourself, right? Because we work with essentially like wholesale printers, commercial printers. So we're getting a significantly lower rate than what you would be paying if you're printing from FedEx or if you're printing from Vistaprint, right? Those are retail printers. So there's a markup involved in that. And we charge essentially that same mock-up or that same markup for those prices, but you're getting a fully custom item that you don't have to go home and cut and print and put in a frame and bring to the venue yourself. So we make it very accessible and affordable for clients to do that through us. Whereas I think some people see the pricing up front for those items. They go, oh, we could never spend that. And then after they spend all the time buying templates and printing everything, they've spent the same amount of money to do a significant amount of work.
Well, and again, the time and energy, like you said, is it's just ruining the whole process. So
yeah, you're supposed to be a guest at your own wedding. I
so
think
many couples don't realize that. And I have a bad joke, but I'm like, you want to have fun at a wedding, you need to be a guest at someone else's, because it's so hard going through the wedding just even from being there on the day of, and people are like pulling you in so many different directions, and you have aunts and uncles that don't have boundaries with you, like they'll just like, you're coming to take this photo right now, and you're like, okay, because you have no choice, like you just don't get to be a guest in the background. So and
I think a lot of couples think that they're the hosts of the wedding, and they are, especially these days. It used to be parents were the hosts, now the couples are the hosts, which I agree with fully. But just because you're hosting doesn't mean that you're working.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, right? Like on the wedding day, you shouldn't be thinking about, oh, I have to get dressed in 30 minutes. And what do I need for all of that? And did my photographer do the flat lay photo already? And, what's being transferred from our hotel to the venue and from the venue to the after party? You don't want to be thinking about any of that, because that pulls you out of the experience. And I think that everyone holds their wedding day as like quite a precious moment in their life. And everybody, we hear all the time, I want my wedding day to be perfect. I want my wedding day to be perfect. No wedding is perfect, but you can get really close to perfect if you have the right team in place and if you fully trust them to do what they do best.
I love it. All right, we're getting kind of to the end here, and before we let you go, I just want to, like, if a couple could splurge on only one thing, what would you recommend and why? I'm going to give you, mic drop moment.
Entertainment. I think it's the most important part of the wedding. Whether and that's scalable too, right? Whether that's a really banging DJ that's going to be live mixing and tailoring the night to your preferences, or whether that's a 15-piece band that's blowing the roof off the place. That is the energy and the heart of the event. So if you're going to spend money anywhere, it should be in entertainment. It breaks my heart when I attend weddings and the DJ is playing the same 25 songs that I've heard at every wedding the entire year, and the dance floor is empty. Like a couple months ago, went to one of my husband's friends' weddings, and they're big partiers. Like, like we used to go visit them in college. Like, they were the party people. And on their wedding day, their dance floor was empty.
No.
It was empty because the DJ started off the night with Bruno Mars, and nobody in their 30s wants to dance to Bruno Mars at this point, right? So, and I just sat there and I was so irritated. I was like, oh my gosh, like if they would have just asked me for a DJ recommendation, this wedding would be entirely different.
Yeah.
So
and it's crazy, like how much that changes the whole vibe too. It's sad.
I mean, you find when the entertainment isn't good, everybody's outside.
Yeah.
Because what's worse than bad music or cliche music? Loud cliche music.
Yeah. They're outside making their own party, so.
Yeah, they're outside smoking, drinking, playing their own music, having a good time. And it's like, you're spending all this money on this room and no one's in it because you didn't choose the right person to make sure that the party happened.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So now got to be curious because you were a guest at a wedding. Isn't it impossible to work in the wedding industry and be a guest at a wedding?
I was going to bring that up too.
I'm the worst as a wedding guest. My husband has this, he calls it the 5-block rule. It's the same rule that we instilled when I was working in theater in New York. You can't talk about the show until you're 5 blocks away, right?
Oh, okay.
You don't know who is inside the theater or who's walking behind you or who's sitting next to you on the subway, right? So, so we have the same 5-block rule for when we attend weddings. So I have to keep everything inside of me until we're in the car and away from everything. And then I spill and I'm like, I can't believe they did this. They should have done this way. More baby breath. When are we going to see that end?
Yeah.
So, and I'm very opinionated in general. So it's really hard for me to attend a wedding. I often end up getting a little too drunk at weddings.
Well, no, that's my wife. Yeah, and that's what my wife. She's like, you need a cocktail. You need to shut up. You need to. So I think I need to institute the 5-block rule because I'm just like standing there and I'm like, why is that person right there? What are they doing? Why are they not moving? Why? And look, there's like, and I'm like constantly, and I'm not even a caterer, and I'm like, why? like critiquing the catering and critiquing.
Yep. Like, you're like, they served me from the right instead of the left.
Well, yeah. And I don't know why, but it's just like, and I'll see the caterer, they're like wearing like shoes that don't match. I don't know. I just
those are non-slip.
Yeah. Or there's like, I'll look over at the bar and there's like 20 people in line. I'm like, why is no one stepping in to get this line down? Like I just
pass champagne, pour a bunch of whiskey, and just get it out there. I mean, it's just. When you're in this industry and when you really care about it, it's really hard to detach, even at other events. Like I was at a music festival last weekend, and I don't plan music festivals, but they're just large scale live events.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at things and I'm like, why is security doing this? Why is the sound tech not fixing this hum that I'm hearing? The lights why are there only pars in the front instead of movers?
Yeah.
I'm looking at all of that stuff. I drive my husband crazy. But it's hard to not notice those things when you spend your entire life dedicated to noticing those things.
You will never be able to turn it off. It's just like we just went to an event conference and
I was just
they
going to say
had
that.
they had this gala and it was great gala, but like Kevin and I and like, some of his colleagues, they just kept saying like, we are all event people and we're at an event and it's extremely difficult to impress event people.
Oh yeah. Like
Well, and
Kevin,
there
you
was
mentioned WIPA earlier.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
at WIPA events, because we have a brand new chapter here in Cleveland.
Oh, great.
WIPA events are like the hardest crowd you could possibly have for an event. We're never going to be happy about anything.
No.
Because we're like, same appetizer we've had a million times, or why is dinner being served at 9:30 at night? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? We're the worst. So it's hard to impress.
Well, and exactly. I was going to say the same thing. Like we were just in Wisconsin for the NACE experience, and we were all at the gala, and there's like instantly like the awards presentation is first, it ends, and then everyone moves to a different room, and there is instantly long lines everywhere. So just like having, all right, hey, they're 10 minutes out, let's because they did stations, which is fun to go do station, but it's like let's start pre-making food, like pre-making the plates, so we have 40 of them or whatever ready to go, as people walk in the room, we can just or like, and you were saying like
up, do two of each station on different sides of the room.
Yeah, and then the first food station when you walk in, like obviously they're spread in the room, but the first one that you would walk up to had one poor girl at it, and I'm like, why is there only one girl here? Like, she needs backup, she needs reinforcement.
Well, and then they put the bar and the food station across from each other, so at one point the lines are merging and meeting in the middle, and no one knows what's left or right. And we were crazy. We actually stole a cocktail table and took it with us around the
like it had wheels, but it didn't.
Yeah, we wish it had wheels because we made sure it wasn't going to fall apart on us. We inspected it. We actually tied up the linen, but we were like, screw this. We're taking, because they had a cocktail table that was in the middle of these lines, and we were just simply trying to get food, and the gala is expensive. That's anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
We're the worst.
I have attended weddings and straightened chairs at said wedding. Like, I'm waiting for the ceremony to start, and I'm like readjusting chairs.
Yeah. Because we
can't. Like, they're gonna hate these photos, but these chairs aren't right.
Yeah. Well, we can't turn it off. That's the biggest part of it. So,
but it's what makes us perfectionists at the end of the day.
Yeah. All right. Well, Nora, what's your favorite part of a wedding? I always like to ask our guests that.
Oh, gosh. I mean, if I didn't love every part, I probably wouldn't be doing that. But I really do love the room reveal. I think that is, it's really a moment for the planner and the couple.
Yeah.
And usually their parents. But it's really the moment where everything kind of comes together and the couple is really appreciative for all the work that's been done, and it's their first time really seeing something that has been so far intangible be a reality. So I love that moment. There's about 1 million photos on my Instagram of me hugging people during room reveals.
I love it. That's a good moment. That is actually a really good moment of the wedding.
That's a really good answer. We haven't got that answer yet, but I've never but that's a really good one. It's kind of, again, a full circle. So
yeah, and I'm a word affirmation girl, so there's nothing better than standing there and hearing them go, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful! It's exactly what we wanted." Like that.
Yes.
I love it. All right, Nora, how can our listeners get in touch with you or find you in the world?
Yeah, well, you can find us on pretty much all social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Engage with Nora. And if you're interested in working with our team, please visit our website, engagenora.com, and fill out an inquiry form, and we'll get in touch.
All right, perfect. And we'll have all of Nora's information in the show notes. Nora, we can't thank you enough for being here today, and we really appreciate your time. So, folks, we'll see you next time on another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married? Bye, folks.
Bye.
Bye.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married podcast.
Brought to you by Fantasy Sound Event Services.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. Please get in touch with me or August if you have any topic you would like us to cover.
Or if you're struggling with your wedding planning, please be sure to submit a question to podcast@fantasysound.com.
I encourage you to check out our other episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're a fan, we'd love if you would subscribe to the podcast and leave a review.
It helps others find our podcast so that they can learn from our guests too. And to everybody listening,
Happy wedding planning!